See, now smiling is half the battle, right? That's what I think when people are, I guess I should like point this at the where the sound is coming from, right? Anyway, welcome to the live stream, everybody. We're going to do a live recording of my Monday podcast. Look, I have a paper towel on my desk. I'm in like full scatter mode today. So I keep running around doing things, and it's been kind of a funny day with that. Yesterday, Mama Sauce and I both went into full scatter mode at the same time, and Tactical was sitting in the living room trying to concentrate on something, and we bugged the crap out of him. It was hilarious. I was like, I swear it's biological. Like we get together and we go into scatter mode and we'll go from topic to topic, topic, back to the first one, into the second one. And it'll go on like that for like an hour. So that is what it is. So welcome to the live stream. Here's how this is going to go down. I'm going to do a live recording of my Monday podcast. And if you have questions and you're in the live stream, put them in all caps. I will star them. If I can work them into the show, I will. If not, is what it is. We'll do it at the end. And then once that's done, we'll say goodbye if there's nothing else to talk about. And today we're going to talk about holiday gift ideas. So before I start the podcast, I'll do a 5-second delay. And I just want to remind you that if anybody who looks a lot like me contacts you on social media or in the comments of YouTube, asks you to go into a private chat room to talk about stuff, that's not me. I'm not going to do that. If you want to talk to me on the community, we have a Telegram group that's /LFTN group on Telegram. And I'm there, and a whole bunch of other LFTN people are there, and we talk. We also have a MeWe group. It's called Living Free in Tennessee on MeWe. You can join us there. We talk. I'm not pulling you off into a secret room. I had somebody do a really clever imitation of me by taking the L in Nicole and making it an uppercase I, so it looked like an L. And I had to get them taken off. It took about a week. I ended up changing my profile picture so people could easily tell the difference, but they stole all my assets and were trying to get cryptocurrency from people. It was ridiculous. They were trying to get people off into a Patriot group. I'm not going to invite you off into a Patriot group. I don't think I'll do that ever. It's just that's not the language I use. We have a community. I use words like self-reliance, living free in Tennessee. You know, I will talk about freedom cells, but those are freedom cells. It's a different thing. Anyway, don't get scammed, guys. I don't want you to get scammed. That would suck. And I don't have good tools for filtering that stuff out. Anyway, if you have not already done this, subscribe to my channel. Hit the subscribe button, hit the bell button. You'll get notified whenever we go live or upload everything. I also wanted to talk about something I did this weekend. I got my garlic planted, and I wanted to do like a time-lapse video, and my phone does not have a time-lapse setting. Somebody mentioned that might be a thing. It's not a thing on my phone. And I didn't have like enough space on my phone to record for 2 hours while I planted garlic. So I did a 2-hour live stream of garlic planting, and I just streamed it and said I won't be talking or seeing your comments because while I'm working with my hands, I can't see the screen. I did say if you're interested in hearing what I have to say when I'm doing a project like that, let me know, and I will totally see if I can recruit somebody to monitor the live stream, either digitally or whatever. So I see we've had our first porn link for the episode. This is great. Okay, so we're going to go into the recording, and then we will go from there. I have a couple of things I'm going to show you on the screen during this one, kind of playing with some new tools. And I actually meant to do this as they have a webinar feature on StreamYard now. So I'm going to do something to test the webinar feature, maybe just a roundtable discussion this month sometime with members. It'll be kind of fun. Okay, let's do it, guys. Welcome to Living Free in Tennessee, where we talk about building the life you choose on your terms. Today is Monday, December 5th, 2022, and this is episode 665 of Living Free in Tennessee. And today, it's something I used to do annually, and I have done 6 shows. This is my 7th, and we are in our 7th year right now. And it's holiday gift ideas that are homemade. And I started this my first year because we're on a homestead. So it just stands to reason you might as well take some of these skills you're learning and then, turn them into holiday gifts once a year. There's a lot of other reasons to do handmade gifts. The problem with this topic annually is every year it gets harder because I have sort of a wheelhouse of things I do. But I didn't realize I'd taken last year off of this topic. I was like, it's time for the holiday gift thing. What did I do last year? Nothing. Apparently I took last year off. Didn't even know. So this year I sat down with Mama Sauce and Tactical, and we kind of sketched out some ideas. I already have some things I'm working on this year that are different. So those are in there too. But it was a combined effort, and not all of them are keto friendly. You'll understand what that is when I get there. Of course, we'll do our usual segments that we always do on a Monday show. And I wanted to remind you that you can send me your frugality tips or ask questions. Just send them to Nicole at livingfreeintennessee.com via email, or go over to livingfreeintennessee.com, click on contact. Those emails come to me. If you do that, it's a lot more likely I'll see it. If you hit me up on MeWe chat or Telegram chat or chat or Facebook chat, or go to my page on Facebook and send a chat there, those chats, they're kind of like farts in the wind. Like sometimes you'll smell one and sometimes you don't. Sometimes I'll see that there is one, sometimes I won't. And it's kind of like, if I respond to it right away, I've responded to it. If it requires follow-up, I'm probably going to forget because it is not in my follow-up system. So I highly recommend, even though you don't want to open that app on your phone and shoot me an email with your thumbs, do it. Heck, you could do like a voice to type transcript. It would be fine. Anyway, that's how we're getting our frugality tips and other things that we do in today's show. With that, I do want to thank today's show sponsor, and that's Paul Wheaton of Wheaton Labs. Paul Wheaton is a great guy doing a lot of cool stuff over there. He also has a forum called Permies.com, which is one of the only forums I see that's valuable in our space at this time. A lot of people did forums and then got out of the habit of going to them. But Permies.com has a lot of active users. It's a great place to get permaculture advice and other advice. And this week, Paul has put together a bundle of podcasts for you to listen to if you like listening to podcasts, as well as some movies and other goodies. All of them are for $20. Some of the other goodies include a downloadable guide that uses some of the graphics from the card deck we were talking about and just has permaculture terms in there. So you can use that as a learning guide. There's a whole bunch of stuff on rocket mass heaters and permaculture and other topics. More than 100 hours of content for $20. So if you want to learn all about permaculture from the Duke of Permaculture himself, Duke of Permaculture, cult being the key word there. Anyway, if you want to learn about that from him, this is a great way to do it. You've got hundreds of podcasts, all sorts of permaculture stuff, including book reviews and more. That's at permies.com/link/LFTN, or hit the link in the show notes. If you use that link, he will know that you were referred from this show. You'll get gobs of podcast videos and other stuff. So thank you for sponsoring the show, Paul. With that, it's time for us to go over what? The live stream schedule. This week, we have 2 live streams, not counting today. The first one is 9:30 tomorrow morning, I think. I sent out my confirmation stuff this morning. Haven't heard back from everybody, but usually the first Tuesday of every month at 9:30, I go live with John Willis, Jack Spirko. If there's anything you want to hear on this and you're listening to the audio podcast, get that to me via email by 8:30 tomorrow morning, or I'm not going to see it. And of course, if you join us live, it'll be on my YouTube channel. It'll be on John's YouTube channel. It'll be on Jack's YouTube channel, all the YouTube channels. It'll also be on Odyssey and Twitter and all sorts of different places. So if you want to go join us live and get questions in, do that on YouTube, because that automatically integrates with StreamYard. At some point, I'm going to find a better way to leverage comments from multiple systems. If you're on one of those other systems and you're willing to proctor it, let me know, because you could be forwarding, you could have 2 windows open and forward us questions, and then we'd see them all in one place. That'd be kind of cool. Anyway, that's 9:30 tomorrow, Jack Spirko and John Willis. Link is not in the show notes as of the recording of this. As soon as I get the link, I will update the show notes. Also, our Friday Homestead Happening live stream is at 2 p.m. on Friday. That's 2 p.m. That's later than usual Friday. We will follow that by a Q&A show and all of the usual things we do on Friday. Also wanted to let you know, if you want to get this in writing, you can do that by signing up for our email form. That link is also in the show notes. With that, it's time for the first segment of today's show, and that is Tales from the Prepper Pantry. This is where we talk about using what we store, storing what we use in the other direction. That's right. Okay, so I use an app on my phone called Cozy, Cozi, and it allows me to share grocery lists and other things with people who might be at the store when I'm not at the store, which is kind of cool. It's like it's intended for family use. We define our family as Holler Neighbors, is what it is. The two newest Holler Neighbors, do not have access to it. I should give them access to it. But the idea being, you can write your list down, and if somebody else is at the store, that's cool. Well, I had kind of fallen out of the habit of using it because the two rednecks don't really use it. Like Jenny used it, but they didn't really use it very much. And I realized that when I do write my resupply list, I write it in Cozy even if nobody else is looking, because I take a picture of what I have on my dry erase board and then erase it, and I enter it into Cozy so I can mark it as bought when I buy it. So I reunited that because I also do not have written down my monthly maintenance list. And at the first of the month, I do things like put yeast in the septic system and some other just homestead maintenance items. I have them all here in my head about what I'm going to do. And I realized that that's not necessarily a best practice. If somebody comes here and tries to help me run the homestead, they have no idea. So I started a list template in Cozy, and it got me to thinking I should be using Cozy more. And that means I'm going to have to encourage rednecks to get the apps back on their phones and set up and in the habit of using it, which is always kind of it's a learning curve, but if we all do it, it's a lot better. And I just thought I'd mention it because some people have asked me what apps I use to maintain my pantry, and there aren't many, but as it turns out, Cozy is one of them, and it's just a shared grocery list. It's so different people who are in the holler who just happen to be at the store can see, Nicole needs coffee. That's never on the list, but Nicole needs coffee, and I'll get her some. And if specify the kind, then you can do that, right? The cow is safely in the freezer. Almost my entire 17 cubic foot chest freezer is full of cow at this point. There's a little bit of last year's cow left. Carly took the rest of her cow from last year. And then we just put all the bags in. We haven't divided them in half. What we usually do is, you sit there. They're in bags by cut. So, like the ground is with the ground. The steaks are with the steaks. We used to sit there and be like, roast, 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 ground, 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 ground. So that process hasn't been done yet. I didn't feel like I needed to make time to do that because I'm not even going to get into that cow until the other cow is done. And I still have 2 cubic feet of cow to eat from last year. Of course, that means meal planning's happening from some of the cow from last year just so it gets eaten up. And I prioritize by which freezer bag, like they're vacuum sealing bags, right? Which bags have broken a seal. That has dictated what we're having. So this week we're having some brisket and we're having some roasts. And then once I'm through that, I have a neck roast left, which I'll have. It's sort of like neck bones, but with a cow. Just slow cook it. It's delicious. Lots of garlic really helps that. And the meat's very tender on the neck. So I have a neck roast to do. Once those are done, I'm back to things that are in sealed bags, but from last year's cow. So it's sort of like the dribs and drabs. I don't actually avoid the weird cuts like the tongue. Like the tongue is gone at this point. I don't avoid those cuts because I used to because I didn't know how to cook them, but now I do know how to cook them. Speaking of which, if you don't know how to cook a cow's tongue and you go to my YouTube channel, I just added a new playlist, which was a live stream recording of me showing Dory Mulder how to cook a cow's tongue. It's a 5-part series. There's part 3 twice. I don't know why. I actually will go back through and watch those and probably rename the numbers so that they're more relevant to what order it should be in. So just know that there are 2 parts, 3s, and that's just weird. So it does take us through one way to cook a cow's tongue in case you're wanting to build that skill. I also wanted to talk about Vac Packet. So I have a chamber vacuum sealer. The brand is Vac Packet, VACPAKIT. It is put out by Webstaurant. And I've used it since 2020 without any problems. I had a problem come up and it gave me an error code. And I called in to find out what that was. And it looked to me like the fuel filter was clogged. And it was because some eggs had been vacuum sealed in it. They overfilled the bag. The eggs got everywhere, got into the fuel filter. It was gross looking stuff. So I called. And then I got into a cycle of try this, try that. They're like, try the gasket, try this other thing. And finally I sent a picture and I'm like, see that clogged filter right there? That's pretty much what I think is wrong. I need to know how to safely get it off there without breaking the thing, if possible. And I would like a replacement one. And we'll try that next because I've changed the oil, I've checked the seals, I've done all those things. And it took them 3 days to get back to me to be told that they don't have that part. They're now looking into how they could order a part like that and that they couldn't help me. And then they referred me to a certified repair specialist for it. Okay. That whole process took me over a week. And I have higher expectations of customer service than that. So at this point, I've actually figured out what that part is on my own from a different supplier than Webstaurant because it's a standard part, as it turns out. Not surprising at all, right? The vacuum pump that's in there is standard too. And we're going to give it a shot of replacing it and getting it repaired. And if not, I will take it to the certified repair person and see if they can figure out what's going on with it. But in the meantime, I no longer recommend this brand. Vac Packet is no longer recommended. It's something I have. I liked it because it was a little cheaper than VacMaster and does a great job. Okay. And Tactical says my translation of fuel filter means air filter. Yeah. Sorry. I'm not a mechanic. Somebody called it a fuel filter though, like in a parts list. So, or I read that wrong. That's possible. It's the same part as is in the VacMaster for the same purpose. Pretty cool, right? But he's right. You don't actually put fuel in the vacuum sealer. Okay. So I no longer recommend them. I would actually pay more for VacMaster because I think you're going to get better customer service and they're more willing to troubleshoot with you than Vac Packet. Just throwing that one out there in case you're in the market for a chamber vacuum sealer. I am going to sell my Vac Packet once I get it repaired, and that is that. Finally, I am cruising through the canned goods. We are almost out of stewed tomatoes for the year, and it is December, and I'm not getting tomatoes again until July. I don't actually eke them out to save them and savor them because I figure if I use them up, that is what it is. At least I used them up. It's a much worse situation to end up at the end of the season, have tomatoes coming on and leftover jars. That's just my opinion. I like to cycle through the stuff. That's how we use the pantry here. So unless I had a special dish planned for like Easter or something that involved stewed tomatoes, I wouldn't put them aside. If like there's this thing coming that I always need this for and I'm going to put it aside for that, that's different. But I do tend to just eat the canned goods as they fit meals that we're cooking. And that's how it works through. We are also using green beans really quickly. We'll see if I canned enough by the end of the season. Next segment is the weekly shopping report from Joe. This is somebody who's been doing a weekly shopping report for since 2020 to give a realistic historical look of what's up in the stores so that we're not dependent on news rumors for what's up in the stores. And what Joe says is there's likely to be yucky weather off and on all weekend. So we went during a pause in precipitation this afternoon, Saturday. That was last Saturday. Friday evening, however, a lot of pumps at Weagle's I had used were bagged. I went to my secondary choice. It was great. A gallon of untainted regular, that means ethanol free, we dropped to $3.99 a gallon. This was at both stations. Today's first stop was Dollar Tree. The drink coolers were in better shape, but still had a lot of empty spaces. They had lots of canned goods, but we didn't see any lentils we'd previously seen there, and only beans were Northern White. I hadn't bought any lentils in a while, so I don't know if they've been missing for longer. The store was otherwise normally stocked. It was also busier than we've often seen, especially for poor quality weather. And keep in mind, guys, first weekend of December shopping does tend to uptick. People got paid. Things are happening soon at the holidays. They go shopping. And Dollar Tree is a great place to go get cheap decorations if you want cheap decorations. Home Depot was next. Every open area had islands with lots of smaller items. The prices looked reasonable. We found a couple of items we wanted without trouble. 2x4x8 remains at $3.75 per 2x4. This was up to $11 at its high point in the last 12 months. Aldi was last. We found everything on our list, including heavy cream. Stocked everywhere, looked good. They had more of that generically packed chicken. So that's the weekly shopping report for this week. Next segment is a frugality tip. This is where we use crowdsourcing from the network to talk about ways that you can build into your life that are logical to save a little bit of money here and there by doing a thing. This one comes from Christina. I find myself traveling quite a bit. Recently, I found myself on the road without good coffee. Long story short, and leaving out the scary days of gas station coffee, I went to the store and bought a package of coffee filters for $1.50 and a cheap coffee grinder. Someone could do this without the coffee grinder, but also buying pre-ground coffee. But I had a couple of pounds of whole bean bouncing around in my truck. I took out my trusty Coleman thermos, put a coffee filter on the top so that it was hanging over an inch or so, and then filled it with coffee. I heated water and poured it through the filter. Redneck pour over coffee without the cone, guys. Hope this helps someone. I've learned so much from you in this community. I'm grateful for the chance to give back. Yeah, that's the thing about coffee, right? The thing about coffee is you can always make it. And there are lots of ways to make it. Even if you don't have a drip maker or electricity, if you can heat water, you can make coffee. If you can't heat water, you can make cold brew. It just takes longer. I have poured coffee through canning cones with filters in them. I have poured coffee through paper towels. That does leave a little bit of a flavor, but it makes coffee. I have taken pieces of fabric and used them as filters. I have done a tea bag style approach to making coffee. I've just put ground straight in the water and dealt with it or poured it through a strainer. There are lots of ways to make coffee. And on the road, it can be an expense that adds up if you're going to go to a nice coffee shop and buy expensive coffee, which is totally worth it. Like sometimes you just want to taste the expensive coffee and that's cool, but sometimes you don't and you want good coffee. It doesn't have to cost a lot if you bring your coffee with you. I actually have a little Harbor Freight bag. It's a small one and I have my camp stove. I have fuel. I have a coffee cone, which totally part of it is missing now after I went to Jack's. So I'm kind of SOL on that. It's okay. I can just put it in with it. Like it has a bottom piece that snaps off. That bottom piece I'm missing the disc. I can use the cone without that though. And I will pour over coffee that I've boiled, or my other trick, because I have a travel coffee mug. My other trick is I get boiling water put in my thermos in the morning at the hotel. If I stay at a hotel or I stop by a restaurant and get hot water, and then I use that from the thermos all day because it stays hot all day. And then I have fresh coffee every time I want to. So I love that frugality tip. Next segment is Operation Independence, where we talk about ongoing local revenue or learning skills to avoid a need to pay a person. And this one's more energetic than specific, but I've made a change in the last month or two with approaching projects around the house. And by which I mean painting, window replacement, bathroom redos, floor sanding, like all of these things. I live in a house that was built in the late 80s by hand by somebody. And I think he started building it in the 70s. So it's not exactly a new house. And he used some we'll just call them experimental business practices, building practices when he built the house. And one of my complaints with my house is it's built into the ground and it doesn't get a lot of light because of that. But I can't change that unless I can change that, but I have to cut through steel girders to change that. And I'm not really super eager to put skylights in at this time. I also dream of a big remodel. And for the last 3 years, I have been going through some big major life transitions. And as a result of that, my focus has been largely outside of the home. So it's been on more income for me because I need to have more income to continue living the life I live. And especially if you look at what I was earning in 2019. And I have been focusing on when there is money for improvements, how do I have an improvement that results in keeping costs down or improving something for the long term, like fencing for the animals that we raise to make it easier to do that. And then we eat those animals, or putting in my food forest was a big one, like, because it's perennial food, right? A lot of it. I will probably grow annuals in there too. Or improving my annual garden, which I had put to rest for years while I was building Hollow Roast Coffee. I just kept everything real close to my house in my aquaponics system, and occasionally threw fistfuls of seeds into the garden area and ignored it. And if something came out of it, great. But I didn't really tend that for years. So then I ended up with a lot of underlying foundational issues, like water getting under my house, or getting water to my house in a way that's a little bit more stable than how we did, or dealing with leaky roofs, like all these things. So a lot like what I would call engineering category, none of which deals with the cosmetic world I live in. And this year, in the last month or so, I decided enough's enough. Now, part of the enough's enough. Well, by the way, Tactical, if you're listening to this, can you let Tigger out of my room? I did not realize he was in the studio. Can you guys hear him meowing? Hi, Tigger. Did you hear that? Tigger. Yeah, he's done yelling. Now he's like, oh, you're going to pet my head? Pet my head. Anyway, so I've transitioned from those things, and from being pretty focused on everything must have financial impact that I do as much as possible here, to appreciating the aesthetic again. Now, that doesn't mean the improvements we did not increase the aesthetic appreciability of my property. Yeah, Strong Root Resources says, yowl. Yeah, so you heard Tigger. But inside my house, like, my kitchen counters are so old that they're bowing, right? Because they're made out of chipboard with Formica on them, and it's humid in Tennessee, and it gets wet near the sink. And near the sink, they did the stupid thing of putting 3 seams there. So that's all messed up. And it, there's just little things like that. At the same time, I do not currently have a $50,000 to $100,000 budget put aside to improve it. And so I thought, okay, I'm going to control what I can control. And I started making a list of things I can make better, either through doing some improvements myself with purchased supplies that are in the budget, or things I can do even without that, with things that are here, or by making other arrangements. Thank you. The cat is no longer trapped in the studio. Very important. And that's a big change for me, because the future, the former focus was fear-based. And I tell you guys not to make decisions fear-based, but it wasn't exactly fear-based, but it was kind of fear-based on panic minimums. Like, what's the minimum viable thing we can do here to make sure we're moving forward? Because there were so many things to deal with in the last 3 years that if I had done one at a time all the way, the catastrophic result of not doing anything in the other ones would have been a problem. And so I had to have like minimum baseline. We're past that now. We're moving forward. And part of that means I'm super excited. I get to finally remodel the bathroom. Now, that may seem like a small thing, and it may seem like I'm spending money. I am and I am not. What I have is a bathtub outside that's going to switch out for the bathtub inside, because the one inside is from the late 1800s and needs to be recoated on the porcelain. It's a cast iron clawfoot tub. And I have one outside that does not need this, and then I'm going to sell the one inside. And then the floor I put in originally in there was a really fun, creative idea. We did mosaics. In fact, Mama Sauce did a lot of it. It's like in the shape of a river flowing out from the tub with chipped up pieces of tile and these really cool hand blown glass beads. And you know what color grout I used? I used white grout. I live in the country. White grout, not a thing. Not a thing here. Like the amount of what the animals bring in when they walk in and out and the human animals, white grout is a very, very bad idea. So, to make matters better, I epoxied over the top of it. So now it looks like piss yellow grout because the epoxy yellowed over time and it's peeling off. Like that's my floor in my bathroom. I'm going to rip that out. I'm going to put a new subfloor in. We're going to move the drain for the tub because the tub's slightly bigger than the other one. It's a little longer. I'm going to do the new floor. I'm going to repaint all the walls because I already have the paint for that. I will paint the walls before I do the floor. Yes, I know. And then put that tub back in after the floor is in with not white grout. And it'll be a more standard looking tile than it is now. I'm not going to do the mosaic again. I have chosen tile 4 or 5 times for this project. I have not chosen it for this latest iteration. We will see what that looks like. And that's a big deal for me. So I'm going to probably get that project done for about $1,500 to $2,000 in materials. That's what I think it will cost by the time I buy the tile. The biggest expense there is the tile. It depends on the tile I choose, though. So I'll do all the labor. Well, I'll do most of the labor with some help, particularly when I'm going to put a whole new subfloor in, and then the backer board for the tile over the top of that. Cement board is what I'll use for it. But I'm going to need help cutting all the shapes for that and getting it in. And I'm looking forward to that getting done. But things like that are starting to happen. That's a big one. There's a lot of little stuff happening, but I'll share that as we go. That's a lot. I mean, if I hired a guy to do that, it would be a lot more money and it might not be done the way I want it done. And I'm good at tiling, so it just seemed like a no-brainer. I always take off between Christmas and New Year's anyway. That's my Christmas to New Year's thing. And I will say when I tile a floor, it takes me 4 days. Any reputable tile guy probably can get it done in 1 to 2 days. The reason it takes me 4 days is I have a limited amount of time that I am a high-performing focuser on cutting the shapes right. And once I get past that window, if I don't stop, I either could hurt myself with the tile saw, or I start cutting some BS. And I'm like, whatever. So I find that I need to do about 2 hours at a time. Sometimes I can do 2 2-hour segments. It takes me 2 days to get the tile on the floor, sometimes 3 for the last few cuts. And then the grout goes fast. You know, the grout is just like you put the grout on. It's like I have to commit a block of time to get it in there, and then you have to wash it out, and it's, you know, then you're back there every so often washing until the dust is gone. That's the stuff that takes the longest. Mona says, that's a good gift to yourself. Yeah, it is. I'm looking forward to having a bathroom that I can feel like I get it clean when I clean it. Because right now, with that white grout in there, the floor has turned into the thing I just pretend does not exist. Because even when you mop it or whatever, it's just like country dirt colored, plus the piss yellow that the epoxy turned. And also in review, do not use epoxy on white grout tile floors. In fact, I saw all these cool artistic things in Portland, Oregon done with epoxy over the top. I'm not a fan of the epoxy. Unless somebody can prove to me the epoxy will not, with wear and tear on a floor, get scratchy and yellowy over time, I'm just not interested. I can see, like, they have some epoxies that you use for like frame picture tabletops that appear to be more durable for that use, but I suspect what happened with mine is that it's because I was mopping it. I do use cleaner on it from time to time because you should. Usually I use vinegar. It's like not a crazy one, but it also gets scratchy and dull looking over time. And People are asking in the live chat, charcoal colored grout. You know, there's this beautiful brown, dirt brown. No, I've done charcoal colored. It depends on what what the tile is, what color I'll use. So I may go charcoal. If I had a sort of a gray and white one I used for my other bathroom that I like a lot, that I'm debating on if I get that same one for this bathroom. If I use that one, they're big tiles. I was also looking at more of a Subway style, you know, like the Subway as in not the sandwich, but the trains, old fashioned train, like those tiles of that era. We'll see. It just depends. I do like gray more than brown. So gray is more likely of a color for me to do. And then of course I'll seal it. So using grout sealer is really important on floors too. You know, when you do counters, they make a grout that is an epoxy based grout that is only what I would ever use if I do kitchen counters again. It's you have to mix two things together and get it on and get it off quickly. So it's not exactly the same process as using a sandy grout that you can just wash off over time. But man, that in a kitchen is great because when you spill food on it, it doesn't get all soaked in there and absorbed up. It's a great choice if you're doing like granite tile or something on your kitchen counters, which can be less expensive than cutting big pieces of granite or other stone. So that's just another way to use tile. In fact, that's probably what will happen in my kitchen counter is I will tile my kitchen counter because I'm not feeling like investing in cut granite until I remodel my kitchen, like the big remodel. And that big remodel is not on the agenda for years right now. But my counters are falling apart and my choice is like do another Formica, have a wood one made, do tile, or cut a piece of granite or stainless steel or something. And since my house needs to be leveled on that side before I do the kitchen, and I'm not real excited about leveling the house, it's not hurting anything to have the little speed bump in the middle of my kitchen. You know, long term, sure, but right now, not so much. I've had a lot of big projects in the last few years. Anyway, that's my whole Operation Independence segment. Went way longer than I thought it would. With that, it's time for the main topic of today's show. The reason you all tuned in, and we're half an hour in. Homemade holiday gift ideas. And I say that jokingly. I know y'all know I do the Monday segments every time, and that's a significant part of the Monday show. We've been doing some of these segments from our very beginning. Tales from the Prepper Pantry was one of the first segments that ever came to be, because I realized when I started the podcast that a lot of people don't do what I do. They don't cook like I cook. They don't do the pantry like I do. And Mark referred to my pantry as the Prepper Pantry jokingly. And I was like, well, that's perfect for a segment talk. And my Prepper Pantry makes me happy when I walk in there and I feel very secure when I walk in there. It's like, okay, I have all the things. Anyway, but homemade holiday gift ideas is something we've done here almost every year, except for last year, because a lot of this podcast explains what it's like to live out on a homestead. And I do things from scratch and a little bit differently. So we've had 5 other episodes where I mention handmade gift ideas, and I put those links in the show notes. I'm also going to put them for the live streamers into the comments if you're interested in seeing past episodes. But it's episode 15, 54, and then I don't know the other episodes numbers because I started taking those out of the links. But throughout the years, we've done 4 or 5 gift ideas every year. I try to do this episode soon enough so you have time to do it. Let's start with, why would you even bother with a homemade gift? Like, doesn't it feel lame when somebody opens one and it's like chocolate chip cookies in a jar or something? If that's the judgment you get exposed to every year, I encourage you to rethink your relationships. Now, I totally get it. If your standard among your family or whoever is, we get each other gifts, we spend approximately this much or whatever, or if you are in a financial situation where it totally makes sense for you to be able to spend lots of money on gifts and everybody enjoys it and it's part of the fun. That's cool. That's totally cool, right? But I think a lot of us also have, you know, budgets that mean that we need to put ourselves in a place where maybe we don't spend $2,000 at Christmas. Maybe we spend less. Maybe we don't want to. Maybe we want to focus the money we would spend on Christmas on a really fun trip that we're going to do this summer. Like there's lots of reasons why you do handmade. I like handmade because it's thoughtful and it's interesting what people make. I also love consumable gifts because they don't add to the clutter in my house. And I think it's just kind of I think it's a fun little thing to do as a family sometimes is say, hey, we're just going to do handmade gifts. And as a result of that, what comes of it? I don't know. So that's why I would do homemade gifts. And you know, like some of my most prosperous friends are also craftsmen, and when they make a handmade gift, you're like, oh, that's awesome, right? It's just it's funny that some people perceive handmade gifts as less than, and I think it's more than. Somebody's put their time into that. That's pretty dang cool. So, and that brings me to, we talk about this about every year, Christmas, Hanukkah, or whatever you celebrate. If you celebrate something at this time of year that involves gift exchange, there are a lot of expectations put on us from outside our control. And some of those expectations revolve around keeping up with the Joneses. And one of the biggest mistakes we can make is we want to build wealth, prosperity, and happiness into our lives is to live up to other people's expectations of us rather than live up to our own expectations. And sometimes that means a gift expectation, right? So gift expectations are often not there. They're not there. You have it on yourself and you think the other person has it on you, but they're often not there. And I know sometimes they are. But when we get stronger and have our purpose clear and we've figured out which relationships are really important to us and why, and which ones are vampiric in nature and sucking energy out, I think it becomes easier to stand up and say, the truth of the matter is this year, I don't want to go into debt for holiday expectations. And if those expectations are, and I don't need anything either in return, right? If those expectations are there, I'm not okay with that. And I would like to this year, rather than do expensive Christmas, let's do time spent together Christmas or whatever it is. You can set expectations for those around you or with those around you that are clear. I don't think it's hokey to talk about it if you feel like you need to talk about it. I do know that I used to have this issue in my life where there were expectations. It wasn't from my family. But there were outside expectations. And over time, I've transitioned out of those relationships. And I give people gifts at Christmas. I do. And nobody's ever said, nope, that's not okay what you gave me. Nobody's ever said that to me. And I like it that way, right? I prefer it that way. I think that is more in spirit with what gift giving is. You give gifts to people because you want to, not because you have to. And if you are giving gifts because you have to, if that's what you need to do to make it through what you need to make it through, I get it. But if you can start moving away from those kinds of relationships that have that kind of expectation and you're giving gifts because you have to, you're going to be happier in the long run. Now, this does not address the you want to and don't know what to get the person. That's a whole different conversation. But it's more the toxic expectation that it's in your control to let go of it. It's hard to let go of it at this time of year, especially when you're just assaulted by all sorts of advertisements. And I'm the source of some of that advertisement, right? I sell Hollow Roast coffee. I'm like, it makes a great gift. It makes a great consumable gift. But if it's out of your budget, don't buy it for people. That is what it is, right? And Mona says, my family draws names and everybody brings one gift out of one wish list. Yeah, that's a great way to do it. I have other friends who, if they see something that they want to give as a gift on July 2nd, they buy it and give it on July 2nd, and they don't worry about if it's Christmas time or birthday time or whatever. They just, oh, this made me think of you, so I got it, right? There's lots of different ways to address the gift giving thing, and it's so easy to say, just separate yourself from the expectations. It is harder to do in execution, and even I feel, occasionally somebody gives me a gift and I haven't given them a gift. Of course, I feel a little weird about that sometimes. Everybody does, but they shouldn't have the expectation, and you shouldn't either, right? When you give a gift, you shouldn't expect that you get one. If we can all let go of that or agree to let go of that, it's a lot easier. Gifts are a lot easier. So anyway, the other thing is a good reason to do homemade holiday gifts is to let go of overspending habits. And often homemade gifts can cost, but they can cost more. So be careful what you do. Like when we sat down this morning to talk about ideas for this podcast, a lot of that discussion was like, go to the craft store and buy these things and then make the thing. Well, that can often cost more than just giving, something that's useful to somebody as a gift. So I always think that's funny. Anyway, with that, I'm going to flow into the ideas. Guys in the live stream, if you want to add an idea, you can totally put it in all caps, and I'll do my best to integrate it. My first idea, and it involves a picture, so I'm going to let people see the picture. So my first idea is pine shaving ornaments. Now, this is pretty cool because it totally taps into a woodworker's waste stream to give you Christmas ornaments. And I have a picture on the live stream. And what it is if somebody does lathe work, they'll realize that sometimes they get shavings like this, or if you hand do it, you'll get shavings like this. These are from pine wood, and it's when you have sort of long spirally shavings from carving something down. You can take those and soak them in water until they soften so you can move them around without breaking them, and then use a glue gun and clothespins or hairpins to hold shape, bend them into the shape you want, let them dry, and then put multiple shapes together into different Christmas ornaments, stars, loop-de-loops. Some people do some pretty complex one. If you go down the rabbit hole of this, use the word Scandinavian. Go Scandinavian pine shaving ornament, and you will find those available for sale on Etsy and other places. You will find that it's very hard to buy pine shavings for this, but if you work with wood, or somebody in your house works with wood, you can show them this and say, can you make shavings that do this? Now, can you use something other than pine? Yes. I have not played with anything other than pine, so I don't know what the softening practices are. It's going to absorb water a little bit differently if it's a harder wood. Pine is a softer wood. So I would just I'd maybe try cedar and other things and experiment and see if it really works. If not, you might have to take the existing shapes that the shavings are and glue them together in ornaments. And then from there, you can put a pretty ribbon on it to hang it with. You can soak the pine shavings in water with food coloring on it, and they will absorb the coloring. Why do I know that? Because I actually did take basket weaving in college. And this skill is a lot like when you're doing wicker baskets. When you're doing like reed-based basket weaving, you get it wet so it's malleable to weave it however you're weaving it, wicker or just a woven basket. And then it dries and that kind of holds its shape from there. And then once it holds its shape, it holds its shape. So that is how I am making ornaments for my Christmas tree this year. Usually I have the Living Free in Tennessee Christmas reception. It did not work out timing wise. And I'm like, just bring something handmade that can be hung on a tree. I have had some funny ones were fly paper containers made into an ornament. In 2020, it was a toilet paper roll that was just said, just roll with it. All sorts of different things that people did to hang on my tree. But bullet casings, shotgun casings are kind of pretty because they're red. Like, I'm just like, look around and don't spend money and put something on my tree. So that's always kind of a fun practice for me. And that's not going to happen this year. So I decided I would do something handmade rather than use my Hallmark ornaments that I've had since I was a kid and go from there. Now somebody's walking into my room and needs to walk back out. Walk back out and we'll deal with it after the show. Sorry. I try not to be interrupted for this unless it's an emergency. Okay, so that's one. Now, Packrat says uniform strips of paper, all colors of the rainbow can be used, and you'll find a bit under the search terms quilling. So that's another thing. Apparently, you can use those and also shape them into ornaments like the ones I've put up there. So that's idea number one. Idea number two is, and this is something that's kind of seasonal. So it is citrus season. It is citrus season in the northern hemisphere. I don't know what you guys are doing in the southern hemisphere, but I know up here we're getting our oranges and lemons, lemons being the key word. And so one thing you can do is preserve your lemons and give them to somebody in a mason jar that you decorate pretty. And a really great way to decorate a mason jar is cut a piece of fabric and then have the lid on, and then you put the fabric and then you screw the lid down. Okay, that makes like a really pretty little jar. You can put ribbons on it or you can put a special label on it. The way you preserve lemons is you take your lemons, and this is a recipe for 10 lemons, and you need half a cup of salt and then water or lemon juice. Clean the lemons and then cut them into quarters, leaving it attached at the bottom so it kind of opens up like one of those exploding onions or whatever they have at the steak places. So it just opens up into quarters. It's almost like spatchcocking a lemon. And then pack so you mix those with 2 tablespoons of salt. I'm sorry, you put 2 tablespoons of salt in the bottom of a quart mason jar. And then the rest of the salt you sprinkle over the lemons. And then you pack them flat in the mason jar. Press it down a little bit. Some juice will come out from the lemons, and then use lemon juice or water to fill it up. Put the lid on it, store it in the fridge. This is not something you're canning. You can can it, but that'll change the character, and give that as a gift. Likewise, anything that you create like that in a jar can be decorated, right? And I say that every year. Like if you made pickles, if you made jam or jelly, if you made another canned item that's really cool, like cowboy candy, great gifts, great gifts. Okay. Idea number 3 came to me this year because I needed juniper berries to cure some meat with. And right now, juniper berries are pickable in my yard. I can dry them in my Excalibur dehydrator, or I can give them away fresh. But juniper berries are an unusual spice that can be used in different recipes. So what you do is you go pick them, and then you type up a recipe or 2 and print it out and deliver it with the juniper berries saying, and here's some ways to use it. That's a great one. If you are not a typer, though, you can write it out and do handwritten or photocopy handwritten ones. Makes a great gift, and it's an unusual thing that most people will not have gotten before. In fact, most people don't even cook with juniper berries, and they're delicious. So it's just a fun little thing that you can do. Okay. Idea number 4. Idea number 4 is a handmade walking stick. How many times have you been in the woods and you find that perfect shaped walking stick? That's a gift right there. Now, you can just give them the stick, or you can carefully remove the bark, sand it a little bit, maybe use a wood burner if you have one or carve just with a knife something in it and seal it, and you have a beautiful walking stick. Now, some people use specific kinds of wood for this. I know Tactical said he's making one this year by shaving down a cedar tree to the heart of the cedar tree and turning that into a walking stick for himself. I think he's going to use pine tar and heat to make it sealed, which turns it black. I think that would lead to a sticky walking stick, so I'd rather have one that's sealed with a sealer. Okay, idea number 5 of homemade holiday gifts. This one we've never done before, and it also has a visual reference for people who want to see it. Now, this one comes from an add-on that came out of the Power Pantry workshop, which was a cookbook kind of focused on some of the dry things you might store in your pantry. And this one is fruit and nut granola. So homemade granola. This has a shelf life, obviously, and it's just something a little different than cookies. A lot of people do cookies. Those make great gifts, cookie platters. People look forward to the same cookie platters every year from their friends. There's nothing wrong with doing that. I've just covered that already in other episodes. So this recipe is for fruit and nut granola. It makes 2 to 3 quarts. And it starts with a cup of honey, a cup of oil, and a tablespoon of salt. What you do is you heat that and stir it, and then you add a tablespoon of vanilla when it has all melted together and put that aside. Then you take 6 cups of rolled oats and a cup and a half of dried fruits and a cup and a half of nuts chopped or whole, and you can cut out different ones of these however you want to, right? You can do sesame seeds, you can do walnuts, you can do no nuts, you can do dried fruits like raisins or dried cherries, you can do no dried fruit, just depends on what you want in there. Mix those things together in a separate bowl, and then once that's mixed, toss in the liquid ingredients that you just put together on your stove that you just melted. Mix it up, put it flat on a shallow baking dish, and then bake for 20 to 25 minutes at 350. You can chop and mix other fruits and nuts at the end, and then that is your granola. Now, I guess some of the fruits won't do well in the oven, so think about that. So in the cookbook, we also have a list of just some nuts and seeds that go well. If you want to think about it, you can roll other grains. So most people use rolled oats. If you have an oat roller, you can roll wheat, you can roll barley, whatever. People use different things. I like it with rolled oats though. So that from there, what you do is you put that in a decorative bag or a decorative Tupperware or a mason jar again and present it. You can even do a little ingredients list so people know what's in there. Homemade granola is so much better than the granola you buy at the store. Once you make it, I don't think you ever go back because it is so delicious. Okay. And for the last idea of today's show, and I don't see any other ones from the audience I'm going to read to you. Idea number 1, 2, 3, 6. Idea number 6 is a homemade tea blend. I have talked to you all year about what you can forage from the land or grow that makes good tea. And some examples of this are bee balm and peppermint and lemongrass. And then from an herbal standpoint, echinacea. We have raspberry or blackberry leaves, sassafras leaves, rosebuds. All of those things have flavors that are good with hot water and tea. Cinnamon can be added to that, cinnamon sticks. Cloves can be added to that. That's a very strong flavor. Be careful. Powdered nutmeg. And then medicinally, I like mullein. It tastes like grass. Just saying. So all of these things have delicious flavors. There are other things that have delicious flavors. Lemon balm. How could I forget lemon balm? So if you've been sort of dutifully collecting these things all year, you have them. If you haven't, you can buy them now, but it's a bit late in the year to start collecting them. If you have those, make some tea blends and present them in a beautiful mason jar, or better yet, get some decorative bags, like just, little bags or coffee bags or something of that nature, and buy a tea infuser. What do I mean by a tea infuser? I mean, a tea ball or one of those little silicone tea bag shaped ones. And you can package those together very nicely in a handmade gift, and then write a little thing explaining that you collected these from your homestead or from walks you took in the woods. That's a very personalized and nice gift. And who doesn't like hot tea? If you don't like hot tea, you're just weird. No, I mean, even if you don't like hot tea, you're going to appreciate that gift. So those are my 6 holiday homemade gift ideas for this year. None of them are terribly expensive. Yeah, you do need some supplies like mason jars or whatnot, or packaging to put them together for somebody, but they're all thoughtful and they take a little bit of time, but I always like the handmade gifts better. Anyway, if you like the show and want to support the work I'm doing here, you can do it in 2 ways. 1, get your coffee at Hollow Roast. 2, consider becoming a member. Just head on over to livingfreeintennessee.com to find out more. And don't forget to thank our show's sponsor, Paul Wheaton of Permies.com and Wheaton Labs. With that, guys, go out, make it a great week. Okay, the show's over and I don't see any comments with all caps for me to answer, so you didn't have questions. Is that correct? Anyway, thanks for joining the live stream, guys. We will be back tomorrow at 9:30, but keep your eyes on the weekly mail that goes out on Monday, the email, right? Or the Telegram group or the MeWe group or even the Facebook group, which I hardly ever interact on, but I do. I will let you know if time changes for the Tuesday live because I haven't heard confirmation from everybody who'll be on it. We will see you tomorrow at some time, I hope.